There's only two reasons why people stop doing business with you, man. There's only two. One is you stop talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Or two is you do a bad job. But if
Wow.
you keep talking to them and you keep staying in touch, those things kind of circle back. And now 7,000 customers, dude, almost 25% of our business is referrals now. And that's because we keep talking to them. And if you look at one of the biggest downfalls of salespeople in general, or even small business owners, is they get really amped about that first purchase and then they just stop talking.
Welcome to the Maven Marketing Podcast. Today is Maven Monday. This is the place where we answer your real-life marketing questions so you can eliminate waste in advertising, grow your business, and achieve the big dream. Today, I'm honored to be joined by my friend who has possibly conquered the big dream more than anybody I know.
Okay.
How do you like that?
I like how you're starting. Dude, this is good. Keep it going.
Mr. Nicholas Gorden. You've heard me talk about him as the founder and CEO of Shine Solar, but to do your street cred justice, I had to grab a bio because this is thick. I couldn't memorize all this stuff.
I didn't know which site you grabbed it off of. It could
I grabbed
site to
Chat
site.
GPT. I said make my friend Nick sound really good. So here, let's see how they did. Nick Gorden is the co-founder and CEO of Shine Solar, a Bentonville, Arkansas-based company with 200 plus employees, operating in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas, and soon to other states. Yeah.
Don't leave out Kansas and Louisiana.
Oh, Kansas, Louisiana,
and Kentucky coming soon.
So yeah, this is maybe an old bio.
Yeah.
He and his team have sold over 7,000 solar systems to 7,000 happy customers. If you know anything about the solar business, that's rare in and of itself to have that many happy customers. There's a lot of them.
That's true.
They currently rank in the top 20 residential solar companies in America. Crazy. Nick has vast experience in leading direct sales teams. Straight out of college, he founded Dish One Satellite, which was the only Dish Network reseller to ever be acquired by Dish Network Corporate, and a multi-million-dollar buyout for its marketing excellence. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But in the multi-million-dollar valuation, the company Nick built was appointed to be Dish Network's in-house direct marketing division, or Big Dish Network.
That's right. Big Dish Network.
Big Dish Network.
That's right. Big Dish Network.
Yeah. At the time of the acquisition, Dish One had over 500 full-time employees and was installing over 25,000 new customer accounts per year. Nick has also built direct sales teams within the mortgage industry using unconventional methods, which we're going to talk about today.
Pretty unconventional.
Very unconventional. Between 2010 and 2014, his mortgage company generated thousands of exclusive leads, grew loan volume by 10 times, and expanded into 7 Western states. His leadership, marketing, and expertise and successful track record consistently attracts top talent and spurs rapid growth. And I'm so honored that you're here. I've been talking about this for over a year, I think. And I have several categories of things I want to ask you about today for our listeners, but I will just say, if you're in the first 3 minutes of this episode and you're like one who listens on the way to work and might kind of sort of come back, I'm not calling you out for my sake and my stats, but I promise you want to earmark this one and you want to come back to it and you're going to listen to it several times over. Nick is an absolute machine, and we have been honored to work with his company for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was thinking how long it's been. It's been several years now.
Maybe 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, we fired a lot of agencies along the way. So
I haven't been fired yet.
You're hanging in there, man. You guys are doing well.
Yeah, so we might get into the story here, but for the folks today, Nick has grown multiple companies to just astounding numbers. Any numbers that anybody listening would dream of having. And then he's not only scaled them, he's built it with excellent culture, phenomenal values, just good family-friendly atmospheres. And he's done it sort of flying in the face of, I think, what corporate America and what a lot of conventional wisdom wants us to think. So he's not only doing it in a big way, he's done it the right way. And yeah, I'll say it again, just thank you for being here.
Good. Thanks for having me. It's always a ton of fun. I love coming to Missouri.
Yeah,
and you always take such great care of us. Those street tacos for lunch were off the charts.
We had street tacos.
Dude, those were good.
We fired up the big green egg, and yeah,
it was awesome. So
we do it. So thoughts. We're gonna do this on adaptability because it's a very current thing right now. One thing I know about you is that you never get in a situation I've never seen you pivot out of, and we are in a very pivotal state, just in the marketing world and the sales world right now, and certainly in home improvement. And then we're going to talk about scaling companies and then just general marketing, which I know is a topic you and I are both very passionate about. But I've seen you take massive organizations. I know I've heard stories about when you did it in the mortgage business and then your original satellite company and then other solar companies. You always manage to find a win. I think that's a huge skill. I know a lot of my friends now have just had a wild couple of years, and then last year was really weird. But but you make fast changes
Yeah.
in your companies. And I think that's what's led to growth and then also staying alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess looking at other leaders and people you know in other respective maybe home improvement industries or service industries, what are the types of things you believe that you change faster than most, and how has that kind of led to your success?
It's funny. I think most entrepreneurs are typically a balance
Hmm.
of an artist and a scientist. It's kind of both, right? And you have to, and some more so than others, right? But there's all the data, there's all the stats, there's all the stuff you can collect from your accounting department, your finance department, and whatever reporting software you're using. But I'm a big believer in that there's just a certain feel that you have when you come into the office sometimes. And for me, I intentionally put my office right next to the sales floor. I mean, so when I walk outside of my office, I'm standing on the revenue generation machine for my whole company.
It's huge.
And
Yeah,
there's
I've seen
days I
it.
can
Yeah.
walk in and I can just feel the room and I know this is going to be a good day, man. Like I can tell, like early results, early numbers, I can feel it. And then there's days I walk in and I might come in a little bit later. I might come in at 10 or 11 or 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And the minute I walk through the door, I feel the vibe and I'm like, something's off here, man. Like something's going on.
Wow.
And just for me, it's been a lot of it of just making sure that I'm in tune with what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and trying to make sense of those things and put it together. So it's a combination of the data telling you the right story, getting you accuracy, and I think many times it's your ability to read people and specifically the leaders that are on your team, the way they're showing up, the way their attitude is. We talk a lot in our company about the 3 A's: attitude, aptitude, and activity. So, and they're in that order for a specific reason. So anytime I'm meeting, anybody, first thing I'm gauging is how's this person's attitude, because it doesn't do me a lot of good to talk about training or how much work they did yesterday if their mom passed away, and I got to realize, hey, there's something going on here first with this person's attitude that we need to talk about. We need to find out what's going on. Then the second thing I'll look at is aptitude. Has this person been adequately trained to do the job I'm asking them to do, or do I have somebody that I may just have the wrong person in the wrong spot and they're just not inclined to do this job well? And is there something else they should do? And then lastly, activity. That's the work. Are they putting in the work? Are you putting in the work? And when you start kind of looking at things through that lens, the way that I do, that constitutes a lot of the feel that I get for what's happening with the data. And I don't know, sometimes when you don't know, maybe this is a little unconventional wisdom, but I am a fan of moving things and shaking things, but I only do it one at a time. Because if you do everything all at once, you don't know what worked and what didn't. Yeah. But I'll change one variable at a time. And it may be as simple as where people sit. You know what? I don't want you on this team anymore. I want you on this team anymore. You don't need to be the guy leading this team. I want this guy to lead the team. It may be just something very simple that we do. The other day, I went out and bought a bunch of green and white flags and bells. And so we have this team on our sales floor that their responsibility is to get a prospect on the line, ask just a few qualifying questions, and then hot transfer that call to one of our guys who can close deals well over the phone. And I said, you know what? We can do all this digitally, but how about we just go put a bell on these guys' desk, and every time they have somebody who is ready to talk, hit that bell and raise the white flag. And then everyone on the floor can see it. And then I have a list of people that I've pre-selected that have green flags, which means they've met minimum standards to be eligible to receive these calls. Green flag matches up with a white flag. We have a connection, and then the call's transferred. So again, something very simple, but it almost in a manual way gamified the whole thing, and they love it. Now they're just like, dude, am I on the green flag list? No, not anymore, dude. You're off the list. Seek you back. So
wow. So man, I heard so many things there. I would boil down the things you change to intuition and not waiting.
Yeah.
And I was about to ask, like, so what's an example of a change that you would make if the room is off? And that was one of them.
Oh yeah, that was one that we made recently. And here's the deal: you got to realize that as a leader, people are looking to you. They're looking to you for direction. They're looking to you for guidance. Looking to you for leadership, especially newer people in your organization. And you have to strike that right balance between, showing the way and knowing the way, but also kind of having humility to say, I don't quite have this figured out. Let's go work on it together. And people love vulnerability and authenticity, but it's got to be that right measure from their leader where they say, hey, this guy's not faking it. This guy's the real deal, but also he's straight up with us enough to tell us, yeah, we don't have this one figured out. Let's go work on it together. And typically
that's so hard for so many CEOs, especially.
people typically will only own the decisions that you make them a part of. So if I come and tell you this is what you have to do, well, you might do it because I'm your boss and because I'm paying you. But if I sit with you together, even if I already know what we're going to do, I can say, well, man, here's a couple things that we could do. What do you think of this? What do you think of that?
That's such a mature
And the minute you start
posture.
contributing into the part and then we decide on something together, well, you own it now. It's yours. You brought it up. And I've just found so much better buy-in from people I work
co-creation.
with. Just make it a part of it, man. What do you think we should do? What's your take?
That message and that virtue should never get old for a CEO. Like we could always use that reminder. I could for sure. So you make those kind of changes. I view that as maybe a little showmanship, as like, okay, dude, we need a new distraction. We need it. Not that it's a shiny object, but it's
just mixing things up.
Familiarity breeds contempt. What things in an organization, when you build it to, multi hundreds of people and you're across certain states and you have so many variables, what things do you not change? What's sacred?
Yeah. I would look at it in the form of principles. Like principles are undergirding infrastructure of your organization. A lot of it comes down to your culture, comes down to your core values. And unfortunately, words like culture and core values have kind of turned into just more showmanship words that people say, this is who we are, this is what we're about. And you might hear about it in orientation when you join the company, and you might hear about it occasionally in a little whatever it is. But I've just found that the only way people will take those things seriously is if you continue to talk about it. And we have, like, for years and years. And one of our core values, I mean, you brought it up at the beginning of the show, is nimble and adaptable. That's one of our core values. In fact, I just had my chief of staff you see those little rubber bands that people wear around their wrist, and I had her just go make some recently that just say Shine Solar, nimble and adaptable, and people just grab them by the handful at the front desk and start wearing them, and handing them out to people. And so we're always reinforcing the culture and reinforcing the core values with wearables, swag, and it's interwoven into the conversations that we have at work.
It's not just some shiny gimmick.
Well, yeah, it's like, dude, if you don't know what we're about here, you're going to get lost in some of the meetings. Like, you're not going to understand how significant these things are to us. And so, for me, those are the things that don't change, are the principles, right? And you got to understand, like, if you're a CEO or a leader of an organization, you are the one setting the culture. And culture is one of those things where either your company has a culture no matter what.
Yes.
Either you choose to dictate the culture, to lead and to guide the culture, or you just let stuff happen to you. And that's a culture too. This is a place where there's a lot of apathy. This is a place where people don't ever change. This is a place where people are afraid to make hard decisions. This is a place where nobody ever gets fired. You know what I mean? It's just the way that it is. So you can be proactive about it and say, this is what we stand for, and this is who we are. Yeah. Or you cannot. I think the other thing is profits. We're not a nonprofit. Right. And most small businesses out there, they're not nonprofits either. So when shareholders or leaders get apathetic about profits and they're not willing to make the hard decisions, you're just on a slippery slope. Like, you're on a slope where it may just be a matter of time before you go out of business. And so
it's not a company I want to work for.
Dude, it's not. And so, I learned something from another CEO. I'll never forget this quote. It was really, kind of back mid 2022 in the absolute, like, red hot heyday for residential rooftop solar. I mean, anybody could be in the industry at that time and just be making a ton of money. Demand was high, inflation was high, uncertainty in the economy was high. It was a great time to be in the business. And this billionaire pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, I want to tell you something." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Get out your phone. I want you to put this in your phone." I said, "Okay." I pulled out my phone and he gave me this quote. He said, "Revenue is vanity. EBITDA is sanity. We treat our cash like oxygen on Mars." And I was like, wow. Whoa. And he repeated it again. He said, "Revenue is vanity. EBITDA is sanity. We treat our cash like oxygen on Mars." And he said, "Don't forget that." He goes, "So when your team comes to you and says, 'Hey, we got to buy this, we got to do that, we got to take this trip, we got to do this thing," he goes, "The answer is no. The answer is no." He goes, "Maximize your profits." I'm not saying be stingy. I'm not saying be a hoarder. But what I'm saying is things can change so rapidly, and typically it's kind of like the stock market. It gives slowly and it takes away fast. Yeah. Well, that's just kind of the way business is too. Like, when it happens fast. And so if you're not shored up with great cash flow, great cash reserves, those things, you can get in trouble quick.
We talked earlier about a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from a smart man's mistakes.
Yeah.
do you feel like you were able to learn that by watching other leaders, or did you have some experiences that taught you some of this intuition that was like, I got to shift now?
I think it's a double-edged sword for me, because every industry I've ever been involved in, I got involved in the industry at the front end when it was nascent, when not everybody saw it yet, and I was kind of sitting around saying, I think this is going to be big, man. Like I'll go all the way back to like my early satellite days. Before Dish Network and DirecTV, you had cable. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then I see satellite TV for the first time, and I'm like, dude, this is way sweeter. They got this DVR thing where you can pause TV and you can skip the channels, and they got this HD stuff, which is way clearer, and the price is actually less. And I'm like, I think everybody's going to do that. Like, eventually, everybody's going to do that. They're going to switch to this.
And it was in front of everybody.
Thing. Yeah, dude, and it was. Here's the thing. Like, one of the greatest secrets of sales is like, demand for certain products and services are already there. You don't have to go create the demand, just go get in front of the demand. And so I'm not ultra passionate about satellite dishes or mortgages or solar panels. I'm not ultra passionate about any of those things.
Yeah.
What I'm ultra passionate about is getting in front of something that is a huge wave that I believe is going to be big, and let that tailwind just push your company along. Now, you still got to be smart, and you still got to work hard, and you still got to make good decisions, but the trend is your friend, man. And so whatever the trend is, if you can be in front of that tailwind is so strong that it's going to push you to new heights that otherwise you wouldn't have been able to do. So you can take the least competent salesperson on planet Earth and put an iPhone in their hand with a great offer, and they're going to sell it. But you can take the best salesman on planet Earth and give them a BlackBerry and say, go out and sell this. And they're not going to sell anything. They're not going to make it happen. So it does matter. The offer matters. The product matters. Like, the trend is your friend. So you get in front of those things. Now, back to your question, what goes up must come down. And so it happened in satellite television. How did it happen? Oh, this cool thing called Netflix showed up. Streaming showed up. And now all of a sudden, look at the satellite industry today. It's dying. It's almost dead, right?
Yeah, it's barely
like mortgages, same thing. When I got in the mortgage industry, interest rates were at 6.5%. I wrote them all the way down to 3%. You don't have to be that talented of a sales guy to ride interest rates from 6.5 to 3 and make a ton of money, but you need to be on time. But the funny thing is when they go back up again, what are you going to do at that point? Like, how are you going to change? How are you going to pivot? And that's what I saw with solar is, we're going 10 years in the industry now. This year is 10 years since I got in the solar industry.
You've never stayed in anything quite that long?
No, never, actually. I'm always good for about 6 years, dude. About 6 years, and then my wife kind of knows, we're moving again soon. Something's going to happen. Like, he's kind of hitting the end of his clock. Like, this is it. And I'll get back to why I've made it as long as I have in the solar industry. And it's not because of the product. It's for other reasons. But, when I got into solar, I had a good friend that was in San Diego working for a startup solar company. He said, come down here. I want to show you this. I went down there, spent a couple days with them, went on some sales calls together, went on some follow-up appointments, learned a little bit about it. And I just remember flying home and thinking to myself, everybody's going to do that. Like, what I just saw, eventually everybody's going to do that. And so California was on fire. Nevada was going crazy. Arizona was going crazy. Hawaii was there. But man, Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, what's a solar panel? They had no idea. So I just knew, hey,
he was going to move inward.
Yeah, I could be first there.
That's a pretty good strategy for a Midwest anything, is go look at what's happening on the coast.
Yeah.
And just
That's
buy
a good point.
Just do it.
Yeah. Because it will make its way.
Man. And it was just watching a trend that nobody else had caught on to. And that's what's crazy about that to me, is that it's in front of everybody.
Yeah.
It's not like you had some wacky market research
hidden in plain sight. This is happening. This technology is happening. So it's going on right now. And so
disruption. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at any given moment, you can look at certain industries and you can just tell, hey, something's happening over there. And at the end of the day, it's just your ability. And again, sometimes you spot these things personally, but that's why I think it's also valuable to have some entrepreneur friends, some business leader friends, be a part of some masterminds where you can speak openly and not always feel like you have to guard your back all the time and say, hey, what are you seeing, man? What are you paying attention to? What are you watching right now? And that's what entrepreneurs do. It's like the fuel that feeds them is, what else can I do to go out and help people and serve people and get paid in the process? That's a lot more fun than other stuff.
So a question I had, and you just answered it, I think, but I said, all the times you've timed the market so well, mortgage, solar, real estate, you seem to always be zigging while everyone else is zagging. And when everyone else starts to zig, you get out.
Yes.
Is it accurate? And
pretty accurate. I mean, I exited my satellite company. I exited my mortgage company. what's interesting about solar is it dovetails so well into other home improvement products and services that people need. I'll give you an example. Like with our solar company today, upwards of 80% of our solar customers will add new fiberglass insulation at the same time they go solar. Wow. That's a very cheap, inexpensive thing you can do to conserve energy. It's kind of like, hey, play defense before you play offense. Let's keep more of the heat and cool inside your home than out. Along the way, you listen to your customers. Customers started asking me, hey, do you guys do HVAC? Well, after 100 people in a row ask you, do you HVAC? Maybe the answer should be yes, we do HVAC.
Me go get a guy.
That's right. And so
you bought an HVAC company.
I did. I went out and acquired an HVAC company. We bolted it onto our solar company. And now, depending on the month, anywhere from 20 to 30% of our solar customers will add a new HVAC unit. And now we've added roofs. And so when I'm looking at the home improvement industry at a 30,000 foot level, think about all the stuff that people need for their house over the course of the time living there. A new roof, a new HVAC unit. A lot of our solar customers now, especially since COVID, now they want to add a battery or they want to add a backup generator. And what's so cool is as long as your customer trusts you, they'll keep buying from you for the rest of their life. So you're looking at lifetime value. If I can bring someone into the Shine family, so to speak, and maybe their first transaction with us is a solar panel system, but along the way, we know they're going to need all this other stuff. And so serve them well the first time, give them 5-star service, and then just keep in touch. There's only 2 reasons why people stop doing business with you, man. There's only 2. One is you stop talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 is you do a bad job. But if you keep talking to them and you keep staying in touch, those things kind of circle back. And now 7,000 customers, almost 25% of our business is referrals now. And that's because we keep talking to them. And if you look at one of the biggest downfalls of salespeople in general, or even small business owners, is they get really amped about that first purchase and then they just stop talking. Just stop talking to them.
That's the number one thing. I think we even did that for you guys, even though you're brilliant at it. The first thing we do with companies is we say, cool, I understand you want the new customer, but tell me about your database.
Right.
And they're sitting on a gold mine and nobody understands that.
Yeah, it's twice as expensive to go out and get a new one. It takes so much work, time, energy, and effort. And then in the meantime, like you said, you got this gold mine you're sitting on, and people are like, that's not as fun. That's not as sexy. That's not as cool. And it's like, but what do you? So it's like, do you want to make money? Do you want to win? Which one do you want to do?
Yeah, do you want to get past economic scary time? Because I'm seeing you guys right now do such a great pivot because you've had that mentality, solar, which might get a little more challenging here and there. The industry had a challenging year.
It did. 23 was a tough year.
But there's not a year somebody doesn't need an HVAC system, right?
No. Here's the thing. When that thing goes out, especially here in Arkansas, Missouri, those hot, humid summers, you're not waiting.
How fast can you get here?
How fast, man? How fast can you get here? And same thing, I think we've all been experiencing frigid temperatures. So it's just a diversification strategy of product and service.
So we call that the yesterday customer.
There you go.
It's always the cheapest customer to get. It's in the book, and we spend a lot of time there. To my listeners, I would say, dude, you just heard some gold from a guy who's built an enormous couple of companies, and take that. Like, start. I want you to, when you're falling asleep tonight, I want you to go like, where can I diversify? Where can I go serve that customer again? Because that's a good thing too. That feels good. To have a lifelong relationship with customers.
Dude, it feels good. Yeah. And you know what? It's this. Running drills and blocking and tackling may not be the funnest, sexiest thing that you do, right? But it is what leads to winning. And winning is a ton of fun. And so people will only respect what you inspect. And so when you lay out a process, for example, we're a very programmatic company. There's a process for everything, and there's an owner of that process. We don't just do stuff because the manual says to do it. I want to be able to look at that and say, who said that, dude? Who in my company, who specifically is in charge of this process that said we should go do this thing? And sometimes what we find is, man, that's dated. We built some tech that fixes that now or whatever it might be. But then, I'm a big believer in compliance. I'm a big believer in auditing and just making sure if something breaks down, we don't immediately go to the feeling of what happened. We go to, where did it break down? What happened specifically? Why did it happen?
We planned this work before we started it. Yeah.
All the way. I mean, it's kind of old school, super analog. But if you were to walk through our sales floor today, there's a physical script in a 3-ring binder that sits on the desk of every one of our sales guys. And I got a guy over here that'll make, I don't know, man, $400,000 this year selling solar over the telephone. He's been with me for 4 years, and every time he starts a pitch, he leans back in his chair and opens up the old 3-ring binder and just goes through the script. And we have this funny thing where new guys will start here. They'll take off on fire for the first 60 days. And then like clockwork, they'll hit their first slump 60 or 75 days in. And you'll ask them, so what do you think's going on? I don't know, man. I think it's the leads, dude. I think the market's changing.
I've been to
the
those
market's
meetings,
changing.
yeah.
I think it's my team leader. And we'll just pull up a few of their calls and we'll say, let's listen to some calls together.
Because they record them.
That's right. We record every call. And then what I'll find is you are so off script, it's not even funny. So somewhere along the way, you thought you could abandon what $300 million of best practices have taught us, right? On my money, I'm spending 7 figures a month to make the phone ring, and you're taking my leads. You're not working them the way that I ask you to work them. You're abandoning a $300 million proven concept because you want to do it your way. So you can keep doing this and get fired, or you can get back to the script and you can understand that this is where the proven income is. If you want to get back to 5 figures a month, this is where the proven income is. And so just track it and follow it and inspect it, and that's how you scale something. That's actually how you grow something.
Well, I was about to say you didn't realize you were doing this maybe, but you parlayed us into our second topic, which was scaling companies. Mm. And I was going to drop the nugget that, by the way, something Nick has done that would blow the mind. Every time I share this with somebody, it just blows their mind. Most of this hundreds of millions, maybe even approaching billions in revenue you've been part of been done largely on the telephone. Without in-person sales. In unconventional ways, one of the things that Nick does is we use all the marketing channels to generate the leads and stuff.
That's right.
But the first interaction is not gas spent out to the customer's house. It's probably not a one-on-one appointment where they may not show up.
No.
It is a very, very chiseled, methodical telephone conversation, presentation. And you guys aren't doing a ton of video now, are you? It's mostly just phones, isn't it?
It's something I've struggled with, whether to make it mandatory or not for guys to turn on their webcam and actually do the pitch. Yeah. And some reps have the confidence, some don't. I haven't mandated it, but it's almost all voice. I would say 80% is all just voice. Now there is a screen share, and so the prospect is following along on a screen share while a sales rep kind of leads through the script and talks to him. But it's all over the phone.
You've taken that so seriously, and I think there's such a lesson to learn here. Don't take the conventional way your industry has done this and just try to perfect that, because you disrupted that like crazy. I think the concept
2018, like before COVID, before it was like truly a virtual world, right? And so COVID just accelerated us like you wouldn't believe. I mean, we'd already been selling on the phone for 2 years. We knew how to do it, and I remember getting calls from acquaintances in the industry saying, one guy actually told me, it's your obligation to tell all of us how you do this. We're in this together. And I was like, we're not in this together, dude. What are you talking about?
I'll go one further. I have some really close friends that were like, hey, don't you have that guy in Arkansas who's really good on the phones? And would you give me his number? I'm like, no, but I can tell you what I know about it. And so they've been doing that for such a long time. You did that even in the mortgage days, which that's all unheard of to sign a mortgage deal on the phone. Like, how many little mortgage offices around the U.S. are just missing that completely?
We were, I mean, you think about the Loan Depots and the Quickens, that's all over the phone, right? And they were already doing that even back in 14 and 15. But they were kind of the pioneers to be able to do it. And what I realized, I was living in Boise, Idaho at the time. And what I realized is I can sit right here in Boise, where the average cost of a house at that time was $150,000, $200,000. But I can go get these mortgage leads out of Southern California that are $800,000, $900,000, and have a Boise, Idaho cost of living, but be doing loans that are out of Southern California. These guys can make 4 times the money per loan. Yeah, if we can just figure out how to sell over the phone. And so, what really happens is the better you market, the less you have to sell. That's the way that it works. So it's kind of like, imagine a balloon where you squeeze a balloon in the middle, and all the air goes to one side or the other, right? Yeah. So you can either squeeze it towards marketing or you can squeeze it towards sales. And so the analogy would be, if you want to do really crappy marketing, right? Like terrible, low cost, crappy marketing, then you have to rely on incredible salespeople to, number one, get them on the phone, but number two, convince them and persuade them and twist their arm to do business. Now you squeeze it the other way and you say, okay, let's put the energy and the money and the resources into the best marketing that we could possibly do. Let's start telling the story from the first click, the first time they see the ad, and then, a lot of video ads, a lot of explanation, a lot of stuff. And then it's kind of like, it's like a ladder and slide analogy where you think about You think about getting on a slide, right? You take steps up the ladder, and then at the top you slide down. The higher the higher the slide is, the faster you will go down. So the more rungs you go up, the faster you'll go down. It's the same thing with marketing. So I take this ladder slide approach, and I say, okay, viewing the ad is maybe the first rung on the ladder, and then second thing is watching a video, and the third thing is filling out a form, and the fourth thing is self-scheduling an appointment, and the fifth thing is watching a video on the thank you page. And the more steps I can get them to take up that ladder, even though the cost of the lead will get more expensive because I'm losing people along the way, right?
Right.
But someone takes 5, 6, 7 steps and then they slide down, they're going to slide down way faster than if they just went up a slide with one rung. And so it's easier for me to put the resources, time, and money into the marketing. And then I can go out and get sales guys that don't have to be the best sales guys in the world. They can be guys that simply do a great job at providing customer service, explanation, walking people through a process. But if they can show up on the phone 50% there saying, hey, I'm interested. Like, I'm curious, walk this through me. So much better than the old school way of like pulling out the white pages and just starting at the letter A and calling through.
Yeah.
So
Which is probably illegal by now anyway. So
I don't think you can do that anymore.
Yeah. So there's so much there to unpack. I would just pause and say, look for unconventional ways to serve maybe your very conventional industry. I mean, roofers could do this. I know they could.
100%.
I think there's a lot of my remodelers that could do this and have some sort of a, really, really high quality buy-in before they waste the time to go to the appointment. And then the other thing was just SOPs. You have that script. What you guys may or may not know is Nick built his own software to be able to manage the telephony, the lead curation, to the minute which sales guy is making the dials.
I do.
To the minute probably who's on their script or not, because you can listen to the calls.
That's right.
To the minute what the lead source cost you. And it's not that you make those decisions that rapidly, but man, when you need to go look at trends, holy smokes.
But you can track it in real time.
You
right?
can.
And,
I've seen it.
And if everyone's following the process, when your team gets into a sales slump, it's easier to figure out why you're in the slump. If everyone's following the same process, following the same script, doing the same thing, you can go in and you can listen to calls in the macro. Same way that, pollsters out there, they don't need to talk to 100% of the people to figure out who's going to win the election. They just need a few percent to kind of pull in and say just hardly anything.
Gallup uses 1,100 people to determine what the entire country is thinking. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. Wow.
1,100 people. But still, it tells a story.
Same thing. We can go just pull up a sample of calls, listen to it, and we can say, this whole dang sales floor is off script. Or I can say, wow, hold on. Something's changed with these leads, man. Like, it actually is the marketing department. Like, something's happening right now. Something's going on right now. And that's the first place we'll go put the focus.
And I'll add, because the software is web-based, you and your leaders can do that anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
I know you have. So, man, we covered so much ground there. That is so cool. But I would just tell my folks, like, put a process around that so when you're deviating from the gold standard. And it's not that you guys don't make improvements to that over time. You've updated your script, right?
Yeah. Every 3 months, there's a script committee meeting, and the only people allowed in the room are the 5 highest producers in the company. Nobody else can come in and affect the script. So if you really want to change the script, get in the top 5.
Yes.
And then you come in and you can lobby everybody for why you got to do this thing different or change it. But
and co-create it. Yeah.
Here's the deal, man. Measure twice, cut once. When you're putting your SOPs together, when you're putting your processes together, it's worth taking the extra time and energy to really think it through. And then again, get collective buy-in from the people who you're about to force to use these SOPs. Get everyone to agree and say, are we in or are we out?
Yeah.
And if we're in, okay, we're in and we're going to do this. And then you modify them as you need to.
I know a lot of guys who just try to dream up their best idea and come in and try to dictate it because, profit's down or something.
That's all ego, man.
Yeah.
That's all ego. I mean, not that there's not some really brilliant people out there, but it may be the best idea. But if you can't sell them on it, then they're not going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So
the best strategy is the one that people will buy into, not necessarily the best strategy, right?
That's right.
So I'm going to bring in a conversation we had before we started the podcast today, and that was really just about the ascension of your abilities and how your job as a CEO changes from being, the one-on-one leader with everybody to kind of being a recruiter. And the question I had for you was, what's the difference in running a $10 million company and a $50 million company? My guys that are in that range trying to notch up.
Yeah. So if you're already in the right industry at the right time, it's not demand. Demand is there. Like, you can go get it. in my opinion, it's the team.
Mm.
It's the team that you build around you. And as a startup company or as a newer company, you spend almost all day asking yourself the question, what? What else do I learn? What else do I need to learn? What else do I need to do? What else do I need to change? And over time, that question shifts to who?
Mm.
Who already is an expert at doing this thing? Who already has done this before in my industry or a similar industry?
Yeah.
Who is the one guy that I could bring on the team right now? I'm not worried about the cost at this point. I'm just
Yeah.
worried about who's the guy or the person. Write the job description before you have the person in mind. I need
Yeah.
this thing done for me. Go out and find that person. And
Yeah.
it's incredible to me how if you just get the right people on the team,
Yeah.
you don't have to tell them what to do, man.
Yeah.
They know what to do. It's, what is it? Steve Jobs' famous quote where he said, I didn't hire really smart people to tell them what to do. I hired really smart people to tell me what to do.
That's so good.
It's real. Like, it's real. And so when you bring in somebody that is worth their weight in gold, that is going to run your sales team.
I've seen you do that so well.
Marketing and
Yeah.
so, like, here's the thing. I'm great at the marketing side, the leadership side. I really love sales. I love salespeople. Like, I love that. But man, you go put a wrench in my hand or a hammer or a tool belt, I'm going to be the biggest liability on the construction site. I'll put a nail right through my hand. I'll injure somebody. I'll hurt somebody. And so my COO has been a builder for the last, 45 years. I used to work for him as a kid on his construction sites, cleaning up his construction sites. And I didn't learn a thing about construction. You know what I mean? But I was just, and so I said, hey, I stink at this, man. Like, I'm actually terrible and I have no interest in it at all. I have no interest in it at all. So let's go hire somebody that really knows what they're doing when it comes to being a solar electrician, running crews. He's so great with like our blue collar people that work in the field that are doing their thing, builds their trust. And I just know that's not a part of the business that if I spend any time in, I'm going to be able to optimize in a great way. But I can ask questions that help clarify and crystallize the way that we think about things and how it's done. So you don't have to do anything anymore, man. And it's hard because I'm an operator. Like, I really like to get my hands dirty. I enjoy going to work. Like, I enjoy it, right? But there's just certain things I have to realize you're not the right guy for that, man. And you don't have to do everything here. So take a step back and realize if you build it right, this thing will run, not on its own 100% of the time, but it will run, dude. And then you come back and you do what you do best, which is ongoing leadership, guidance, and vision's the biggest thing. There's that passage, I think, in the Bible that says, where there's no vision, the people will perish. And that is true.
So
if
true.
They'll
come up with their own.
Dude, that's right. If you can't lay out the vision, this is where we are, this is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there in 3 ways or less. Here's our top 3 priorities. This, and this. And you repeat it over and over and over. We're going to do this, and this. Well, like you said, if you don't do it, they'll do it for you. And then
rewind that.
And they'll come
you
up
need
with
to stop and rewind that. Whoever's listening, like
your people will come up with their own narratives about what's happening and what we should do. And it's like, no.
There's a period of time I learned that the hard way in a small organization even. Yeah. And we tend to assume I said that on our first quarter meeting. Why? I already said that. Why would you have to say it again? And it's like it's a daily.
It
thing.
is, man.
Yes.
That's why I put those stuff on the little bracelets I give people, or I put it on their shirt.
Listen to that though. Like culture, I've got some guys that start putting their values on their wall. That's a thing to do, right?
Yeah, we do that.
And then, but it's also every conversation you can incorporate into, every swag, certainly every leadership review and all that stuff. It's just, you go back to evaluation is based on those values, performance and all that. I love that. Love that. So I'm hearing systematize things and repeat them often and do fewer things at once. And then huge secret for you is, because I'm sure there's a time where you were maybe struggling to get past that 5 or 10 million mark. And then you learn to just find the talent that could take you there. I think our companies outgrow our ability to lead them in certain ways.
Dude, they do.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah. So, and that goes for financial people. If you're really strong in the finances and the books, and I have a lot of friends that are that way, you might need to hire a visionary. Just because you're the owner doesn't mean you should be the CEO.
Such a great thing.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
CEO really is its own skill set.
Yeah, it is.
So. And here's the thing. Some people really feel like they got to be the CEO. Like, I got to be that guy. And the truth is, if you're an owner of the organization, there is a certain point where sometimes, I've many times considered I mean, dude, being a CEO is not fun sometimes, especially when it's a harder environment or a harder year. I mean, it's lonely actually.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the hardest decisions. I had to lay off a lot of friends this last year, like long-term great friends. Fortunately, a lot of us are still friends, but your advisors and your people will come to you and they'll make the recommendations, but it's not their job to do it. It's not their job to have the conversation. Like, you have to do it. And it's a lonely place to be a CEO at times when you're going through challenging times. And so there's been lots of times along the way where I'm like, I just want to go be the marketing guy, dude. That sounds way more fun than being CEO today. And maybe I'll do it someday. But
well, hey, we're hiring here. So
are you hiring marketing guys?
Yeah,
that's perfect.
We'd love to have one.
I'll just get a house up here in Springfield. And
yeah, come on, man. So I'll ask real quick: is there anything that comes to mind when I ask you, like, how does a leader know when he's reached his potential? What's a good sign in any given category, I guess?
It's a great question. I think if he's or she is vulnerable enough with their people and have enough trust with their people, they'll be able to tell, and you'll be able to have some of those hard conversations with the right people. I think the other side is I'm a big believer in building a great executive board, a board of directors.
Yeah, you've done that so well.
I have 4 guys who are on this board. They're all so successful. Some of them financially far more successful than I am with businesses. And I rely heavily on that board to help me with some of the most difficult decisions. And they're people that I just trust emphatically. And we've always had a good enough relationship that when I'm slipping, they can tell me that I'm slipping. And it may not, sometimes it might be performance wise, or is something off with the way you're seeing things, or like, are you not seeing things clearly? But sometimes it's like, hey, you've kind of outgrown that thing. And you need to have somebody like you can hire somebody to come in and do that better than you. And so what we're really trying to talk about here is increasing equity and increasing value. And so unless you just really love doing that thing, why don't you just hire somebody to do that thing and go do this thing over here? And that's one of the cool perks of being an owner of a business is you actually get to build the blueprint of how your business serves you and not the other way. And so I love the phrase, are you the master or the slave? And sometimes inside of a business, you can all of a sudden begin to feel like the slave instead of the master. And when it feels that way, too many days in a row or too many weeks in a row, I think you have to take a step back and say, hold on, this is not why I got in business. Like, this is not why I did this. What needs to change or need to happen, to be able to do that?
I think we've all been there.
It may just be, I don't know, it may not be a great answer, but for me, it's just more of a feeling and surrounding yourself with great advisors that you can trust to tell you the truth.
Love it. This can be a yes or no. Is bigger always better?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, maybe bigger bottom line, not necessarily top line.
Yeah.
There is, I mean, here's the thing, this. There's a certain point where every incremental dollar of income doesn't increase your happiness. It just doesn't. You hit us. Now, there's a real level of happiness that increases from 0 to whatever that number is, right? I mean, food, clothing, shelter, but you do get to a certain place where you're already vacationing where you want to vacation. You're already eating where you want to eat. You're already doing the stuff that you want to do. You already live in the house that you want to live in, right? When you kind of get to that stage, I think each incremental dollar doesn't add happiness. And so it's kind of looking at saying, all right, I've gotten to the place where financially I'm where I want to be, or I'm where I need to be, or like my needs and wants are being met. Now let's kind of talk about optimizing my life in other ways. Like, I mean, I think all of us have been at places where you've let yourself slip physically, where you've gotten in terrible shape or you've gotten in terrible health because you're pouring so much into your business that you're telling yourself the lie of, well, I can always get in shape later, or I can always feel better later. I'll start eating better and exercising later. And you're letting that slip. Or there's relationships with your spouse or your partner or your kids, and those relationships, they could be better. They could be a lot better than what they are. And you tell yourself the lie of, well, if I don't work these extra 2 hours here tonight, I mean, this whole thing might crumble. And the truth is, you can probably get up from your desk at 6 or 6:30, go spend a couple hours with your kids and your wife. And if you need to go back and hit it after everybody goes to bed, go back and hit it at 11 o'clock and work till 12 or work till 1. But you do get to choose, and you do get to be the architect of how those things work out. And I just feel like you need to be on. The easiest person to trick is yourself. And here's the thing: the smarter you get, the easier it is to trick yourself. I've seen some really, really smart people trick themselves into believing something that isn't true. And other people around them can see it, but it's like, is this guy really missing this? And so
Yeah.
you just got to be honest with yourself. And again, surround yourself with people that will tell you the truth, man. And
Wow.
and be that type of
Rewind
person.
that one too.
Be that type of person to other people too, where it's like, hey, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I am, but you're not yourself right now. You're not yourself right now. And I don't know what to do to help you, but I'm just giving you the heads up as your friend, as someone who's known you for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, college roommate. You're not lying right now, dude. Something's out of kilter. And from the right person, that can kind of snap you back into,
Yeah.
okay, dude, something's off.
Dude, I can think of the 3 that do that for me.
Yeah.
And it's so key. It's a silly question. I just thought it was fun to ask you. If you had $1 million to invest in anything right now that just scot-free money, what would it be?
$1 million to invest in anything right now. Dang.
Just for the game of it.
Yeah, I'd just start another business. I wouldn't put it, I mean, I wouldn't put it in the market. I wouldn't do those things. I would go out and start a different company, a different type of organization. It'd probably be software tech related. It'd probably have some, the buzzword is AI right now. I'd figure out a way to build some of that piece in. I'd just go do another venture, and I don't have it at the top of my mind exactly what it would be. I do think that rates will soften this year somewhat, not as much as everybody thinks they will, but I bet they come down in that 5-ish, 5.5 range. And I do think you'll see real estate go up in value again. So I think in certain regions of the country, real estate's probably a great play right now because I don't know if it's going to get much cheaper than what it is.
Yeah.
So
Good.
yeah, that's how I'd say it.
Not a whole lot of room for it too. So
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go to chapter 3. This is
Chapter
so
3.
good. Man.
Let's go.
I imagine this is how it would be, but so glad you're here. So on marketing, this is chapter 3. You're one of the most intuitive marketers I've met. I'll tell a quick story. Usually people come to our organization and they're either lost or they don't care about marketing but they know they need to be better at it, or they've gotten screwed over, or they're really trying to grow something. And so we have Maven Method, we have our way of doing things. And it's usually pretty full service just because it needs to be, because we know that the landing page has to tap into all the things we're doing in tomorrow marketing, and we need to have the offer right and all that stuff. And there's usually just not bandwidth in a lot of organizations to do that well, and that's why they are where they are. Got a call from Nick, and speaking of somebody who just outsources things that he's either not passionate about or doesn't look for, you called us because we have a lot of experience in TV.
Right.
Well, in my world, TV is a very important thing we do. But we also fancy ourselves as internet marketers and website builders and all this stuff. And I remember where I was. Like, I take you there in our old office. And I was trying to give you my spiel, and you're like, "No, man, I don't think that's what I need from you. I've kind of got people to do that." And I was like, "Well, I've learned that, we kind of have to have all those pieces." Like, you were like, "No, I think we've got that, but I really would like you to think about my television." And I was like, and you talked for a minute. I was like, "Oh, this is a guy I can learn more from on all those things than that." That's never happened to me with client. I'm not saying that we don't have stuff to learn, but you know what I'm saying.
I understand.
You've just done it so well. And so I've learned a lot from you as a marketer and your team, and it's just been awesome to be with you guys on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Is there any particular place or time you realized why you were so passionate about marketing, and where does it come from? Origin story, childhood story, anything like that? First job or something like that?
No, so sales came before marketing for me.
Okay.
And so for years and years, if someone would ask me, like, what do you really love to do, or what do you do best, I would have said sales. I wouldn't have said marketing. And marketing was such an ethereal term out there. Like, I mean, anything could mean marketing, but sales, I was able to kind of dial down on and say, I know what it means to sell something. It means to convince somebody, persuade somebody to buy my product or buy my service, right?
Yeah. Did you get the check?
So yeah, I started with sales, and I got my first sales job when I was 21 years old. And I realized really quickly, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. And then
what industry was it in? I'm curious.
It was in the pest control industry. I took a summer job selling pest control door to door for Orkin. And it was in, where was I? Northern California. Yeah, I was in Northern California. And so you would have this sales meeting at 11 or 12 in the afternoon. And then you would just knock doors. You would drive to some neighborhood that your manager assigned you, and you would knock doors from like 1 p.m. until dark. Take an hour for dinner somewhere, and like that was the whole job, was like cold calling door to door, selling pest control contracts, talking about ants, spiders, bugs.
I can imagine this is why you're guys who get to sit in a air conditioned, inside cubicle, you don't get a lot of sympathy from
No,
you.
not much sympathy, man. I mean, especially these days recently that have been single digits. I'm like, would you guys like to be outside right now? You know what I mean? Like, you guys have, and you got free Red Bull cooler over here and a kitchen and like whatever you want, just like whatever you want to do. But I just realized I was good at sales, and then I realized I was good at managing other salespeople, or like leading other salespeople, and then I realized I was good at recruiting salespeople. And so I kind of looked at everything through the lens of sales, like life is sales, and just kind of when you're 21, you still don't really know who you are yet. You don't even know everything that you're good at yet. At least most people don't. I didn't, but that was really kind of the first time I started to realize, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this thing, and I can make good money at it, and I enjoy it, and this is fun. Like, this is great. And it really wasn't until even in my Dish Network days, that was a full door-to-door marketing and sales model. So you got into a little bit of stuff here and there, but it was mostly sales. But it's when I entered the mortgage industry for the first time that I really had to learn marketing. And what I found was, back to that principle I mentioned before, the better you are at marketing, the less you have to sell. And marketing means a lot of stuff to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's your ability to plant a seed inside somebody's mind with your product, your service, and then not talk to them about what you do, but talk to them about how you can improve their life. It's like everybody has this. I kind of make this analogy sometimes of, a radio, like a radio station's call signal, WXFM or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's one inside of all of your customers' minds that's WIIFM, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
That's the radio station that's playing inside your customer's head 24 hours a day. What's in it for me? So the smartest marketers will talk to people in the framework of what's in it for you.
Yeah.
What's in it for you, right? And then just your ability to sit back and take some real time to understand, what does my customer's life look like? What are their fears? What are their aspirations? What are they scared of? What are they wishing for? And I think Dean Graciosi says it well. Can you finish your customer's sentences before they finish them? Right?
So
can you get between their ears and literally think? Well, not literally, figuratively, kind of think the way that they're thinking, and then that begins to mold everything. It begins to mold your offer. It begins to mold your copy. It begins to mold, everything that you do, and to make that
phone
piece
script.
Work. All of it. And so I really think about the customer journey. And so the first ad that they see or hear about my company at that time, it's like that hook story offer. What's the hook? What's the desire that I'm going to play on? Or the fear that I'm going to play on? What's the hook? Then what's the quick story I'm going to tell them? And I can tell the story in 3 minutes, or I can tell the story in 30 seconds, but I can tell the same story. Doesn't matter how much time you give me, I can refine and I can tell the story. And then finally, what's the ethical bribe that I'm going to make? What's the
ethical bribe?
Yeah. What's the ethical bribe that I'm going to make to say we're going to do this, right? And just realize that it's a sequence that I take them through. And so imagine this for people that play the piano. I could hand you a piece of sheet music. It can be the most beautiful music in the world. It can be Beethoven's symphony. It can be Bach's thing, whatever you want. And if you play those keys out of order, it's going to sound like crap.
Yeah.
But the minute you put those keys in the right order, it produces a beautiful melody that people will now listen to, and it will become classic, right? So what are the notes that I have to put in order so that when I play the song for my prospect, it's just a beautiful melody to them? And it's like, wow, this guy knows me. This guy knows me. He knows my thing. Then you move them all the way through, and you just got to realize that transition from offline to online, or sorry, I should say that transition from marketing and sales, at least in my industry, happens the minute we make voice-to-voice contact. That's the delineation. If you go ask my marketing team and my sales team, where does it stop being marketing and start being sales? The answer is when I get them on the phone.
Wow.
And that's the point. Now I just switched from marketing. Marketing did its job. It was to get the right person, the right qualified person at the right time on the phone or in front of the sales guy. And now if it fails, it's on sales. That's on sales, you know? But if I couldn't get it there, or I couldn't get it there for the right price, or or I have somebody on the phone who has no idea why they're on the phone, what we're talking about, that's marketing's problem, and you should have done that piece better. So that's what I had to kind of learn along the way is like, that's actually, for me, what marketing is telling a story in a sequential way that figures it out. And so when I talk about don't change everything at once, well, that's what I mean. It's like I go start at if something's broken, I'm looking at the ad level, and then I'm looking at this, and it kind of works its way all the way through. Okay, well, I may have delivered a lead to my sales guys, but what's the contact rate? What's the contact rate on a television lead versus the contact rate on an Instagram lead versus the contact rate on a third-party lead that I may have bought from a vendor that I'm just trying to warm up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then once they make contact, okay, well, how long were they on the phone? And then I'm getting into script review. Okay, first 30 seconds, were you on script? First 60 seconds, how many of these people did you set an appointment with? And so everything has a sequential layout of the way that it's done.
By the salesperson, by the salesman. I've seen the tool you guys do this. It's incredible.
It's awesome. It's just awesome. And so that's why I say it's part art and it's part science. Like the science is the methodical way that you do it, but the art, that's where you need the creatives on your team. And someone says, hey man, I know what these people are like, dude. I know what these people are like. And some of those insights can just be so valuable.
Yeah. Empathy and curiosity.
Yeah.
I think you might have covered all the major marketing topics with there, but I will stop off. You just kind of covered one, but the key conversations you have with your marketing leaders. I know you have, at this point, you have several people you lean on and trust to do some of the activities, but what are the key conversations you have with them to know things are going the way that they need to go?
Lately, it's been a lot of just reflecting on the question, do we have the right people on the team? What else would you add right now if we could? If I came to you with an unlimited budget and I said, what would you spend it on right now? Who's the next person you would add to the team? That's what I'm asking my chief marketing officer, is I'm saying,
wow,
hey, can you spot the gap and can you close the gap? Like number one's being honest with yourself. What's the gap? Number two is, how do we close it? Like a lot of life is just number one, knowing what to do, and then number two, knowing how to do it. If you can put those two pieces together, then there's nothing you can't be successful at. Like you can figure it out. So recently it's just been looking at the team and realizing, hey, this needs to be an all-star team because we're in a heightened time of difficulty right now for our specific industry compared to how it used to be. And then I think the second piece is we have our core 6 KPIs that we watch every single day. Every meeting that I have with my chief marketing officer, we start with a review of what we call a cost and conversion report. And I can go deeper if I want to, but look at it. Like, here's the analogy I'll make. I love baseball. St. Louis Cardinals, favorite team. And I don't know how many stats baseball keeps track on their players, but it's a lot. It's a whole lot. But when I was a kid, my friends and I collect baseball cards. And if you look at the back of a baseball card, there's not 100 stats. There's like 8. Hits, runs, RBIs, home runs, batting average. And I don't need to know 100 stats about this player to know if they're good. All I need to do is look at the back of the card and compare batting averages, compare hits, if it's a pitcher, compare strikeouts, those kind of things. Yeah. And I can learn a whole lot about a player just by the back of their baseball card. Same analogy. I don't need to know all 100 stats that are happening around this campaign. You just need to show me what's my cost per lead, what's my cost per acquisition, what is that as a percentage of revenue, and it falls within an acceptable realm. And then I can go a little deeper. I can look at how many of these people do we actually make contact with? How many of these people buy? You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things that we do. And so
the source tells a story about the quality. Yeah.
It's the basic metrics. And those are the things, those are the principles that we don't deviate from. So when a campaign's falling apart, it's not, the sky is falling. It's going all the way back to the ad level and saying, okay, how much did we spend? Depending on the campaign, what was the conversion like, from the ad to the landing page? How many people, once they got to the landing page, filled out the form? And then starting to do some very simple A/B testing. Yeah. Test the headline, test the color of the button, test where the fold of the page is. And you can, and here's the thing, you can find a lot of people that do that really well.
Yeah.
They're technical. They do it really, really well, right?
That's their thing, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not usually the best people at telling the story or, being the creative. And then the creative comes in and they don't want to do that kind of stuff. They're like, dude, that's not exciting. I'd like to what's the next hook? What's the next angle? Yeah. And so your job as a leader, I think, is to sit back and just say, do I have the right team of the people that are doing this?
That's so cool. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of, I can just think of people who, that'll be really helpful for them to hear that. So we'll wrap up here shortly. I'll ask, biggest mentors, authors you've learned from in marketing? Who'd be on your top?
Oh yeah, man.
3?
Like right now, I'm just everything Dan Kennedy. I know
Yeah.
he's been around forever, but I didn't really discover him until I don't know,
It's
2
funny,
or
those
3
guys,
years ago.
the
Yeah.
Ogilvies, the Kennedys, the Eugene Schwartz.
Yeah.
You go back. It's like they wrote this 40 years ago, and they're more on point than so many of these
Totally on
digital
point.
weasels.
So
yeah,
I'm just and what I love about Dan is like he is an incredible copywriter and he is an incredible marketing guy. But he's like old and grumpy and he just doesn't care what you think at all about him. And so he just tells like for right or wrong, just tells you exactly how it is. And he's old enough that he's got so much wisdom
yeah,
that he actually gives incredible business advice, especially for the transitions and the turns. And I just love some of those things that Dan's doing right now. Being from Bentonville, Arkansas, we're all Sam Walton fans.
yeah.
And I love Sam Walton's autobiography. I probably read it once a year. It's a gem. He personally wrote it towards the end of his life. And if you want just a great action-packed summary of how a guy from a town of like 4,000 people, grows the largest company in the world by revenue and employee count, it's just a mind-blowing read. And it is so good. Like, it's so good.
Wow.
I probably read that once a year. I read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich at least once a year. It's just like timeless classic. Like
Yep.
I just love it. And dude, everything. I mean, it's just I love to read. It's how I fall asleep every night. I typically, it's not uncommon for me to fall asleep to like the thud of a book hitting my face, and I'm like, oh, dude, I got to go to bed. And I just kind of roll over and put the book down. So I'm a voracious reader. I probably go through a book a week that I read, and most of them have to do with marketing, sales, business, or leadership. The only time I read fiction is on an airplane.
Really?
Yeah, I love John Grisham. I love James Patterson. But I can't bring myself. I have to be, and usually it's on a plane coming home from something too. It's not going out; it's coming home. Like I'll read some fiction then.
It's a release.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to, especially those long flights. You're like, all right, I need to just kind of disappear for a while from reality and go into a story. So I love those. I love Seth Godin.
He's cool.
Seth.com. I think the guy has blogged for I don't know how many years in a row, every single day.
And he was blogging before blogging was cool.
It is cool.
Like he might have created that.
Maybe he did.
Yeah.
So I like Seth Godin, and I think newer on the scene is dude. I love a lot of the stuff from Alex Hormozy. I think the guy is just wise beyond his years. He really has some phenomenal stuff. So
killer videos too.
Yeah, those are the guys, and I'm telling you, man, it is. I want everyone here to understand this. It is such a blessing to be able to earn an income doing something that you love to do and doing something that you enjoy.
Amen.
It just is. And that gets watered down a lot because you hear, all the rhetoric of, do what you love and follow your passion and all this kind of stuff. And the reality is most people who work for a living in this world, they don't do it at a job or profession that they really love or look forward to every single day. They do it out of duty. Like they do it out of obligation. They do it to put food on the table. They do it to care for their kids, for their wife. But they don't look forward to work on Monday.
Yeah.
They really look forward to Friday, like Friday afternoon and getting a 3-day weekend whenever it happens. But if you're in the club of, I get to, and it doesn't mean you have to be a business owner. You can be an employee. But if you do anything in life that you truly like love what you do and you eat it up and you enjoy it. And even when you're not at work, you still want to kind of get into it because you're like, man, I want to read this book or I want to do this thing. You are just, you're a 1%er. You are so fortunate and you are so lucky to be able to earn money doing what you actually love to do. And, we opened my company opened a branch in South America this last year as one of the things that we did to pivot. And I've spent a lot of time in Central and South America over the years, but especially last year, I spent a lot of time there. And I just see how hard those people work in a very manual way for most of what they do, and how they can just do it with a smile on their face, how they can just be grateful for the work, be grateful for the ability to provide and take care of their family. But that if they could, they would choose a different path. Like they would choose a different route. Like they just would. And so if you're listening to this and you're one of those people who gets to make money doing something you love, just realize what an anomaly you are, because it's not that way across most of the world. It's just not.
Amen. That is so powerful. I hesitate to ask the last question because that should be the last answer.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Nate, the camera guy, will chop some stuff around, or maybe we'll make that the beginning. But final advice for business leaders on marketing or anything you see 2024 and beyond.
So we'll start with the first part of that, which is marketing. Somebody's got to do it. And if it's not you, you better figure out who it is, man. Like that's all it is. So if you're cool, just being a one-man show, small operation, friends and family and referrals only, you can still build a great life. You can have a great life, those types of things. But if you want to do anything of scale and of size, you better figure it out, or you better bring somebody in who knows what they're doing and just be willing to make the investment, because it matters, and it matters in a tremendous way. And the cool thing about marketing, once you know the principles, it's evergreen, man. It's evergreen. So the platform may change, used to be MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and now it's Instagram, and now it's TikTok or whatever. But like the actual underlying principles of marketing, they don't change, man. They're exactly the same. And you just need to adapt the platform and the right message for your product or for your service. And so you need to get somebody in there that knows what they're doing and loves doing it as much as you may love what it is that you do. And that's great. So, look at it like this. You're the owner of a professional sports franchise, and your job is to field the best players on the field every single year. That's the GM, it's the coach, and it's the players, and every position is up for grabs. Everyone's up for grabs because you're there to win. Like, you're there to win games. That's what you're supposed to do. So that's what I would just say about marketing is, if you don't love it, find someone who loves it, and just realize that even if you can't afford it, you'll never be able to afford it. You just got to do it. You just got to realize that you got to have faith in the fact that there's certain hires you need to make, that even if you don't quite know how you're going to pull it off, if you're hiring for positions that are revenue producing positions, you have to go make the hire. You have to go make the hire. You have to make it happen. So that'd be my basic advice on marketing is figure out how to pay for it later. Go make the hire, because otherwise you're just never going to move as a company. Like, don't delude yourself. Like, you're just not going to.
Wow.
And then 2024, interesting year. Back to just the two words, nimble and adaptable. I do think that for a lot of industries, at least mine, home improvement, high ticket products and services.
Yeah.
The beginning of 24 may feel a lot like 23. It just may. And so hopefully you've done some things to refine yourself along the way. You've pivoted, you've made some changes, you've leaned things up, you've gotten efficient, you've simplified, some of those types of things.
You guys have certainly done that.
Yeah. That's what you got to do. But I do think that as you move into the back half of this year, economic conditions will improve, and I think 25 will be even much, much better. But here's the thing. If you're listening to this podcast, unless you're just like a multi-billion-dollar company, yes, the market can affect you, but you have far more power than what you actually think to be able to go in and make change. And sometimes it's a whole new product. Sometimes it's a whole new service. Sometimes it's just some of the underlying fundamentals you missed, like the fact that in my company, I have 7,000 customers. And when was the last time I called them all and tried to add a battery or tried to add a generator or said, hey, how's your solar system working out? I'm looking at your roof. Looks like we can fit 10 more panels here. You want to go ahead and get that done? You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of it's just like the basic blocking and tackling. If you're not doing the blocking and tackling well, all the trick plays aren't going to work, man. So just go in and do the basic blocking and tackling. And I think above all, and this is the part that I love talking to my finance and accounting team about. I got some smart guys. I mean, smart guys who they're Excel wizards, and they love running numbers, and they love giving me like 20 different forecasts and this, and whatever. And they'll come to me and they'll lay out the forecast and they'll say, based on all the data, this is what we'll do this year. And I'm like, I'm not really happy with that number. Well, that's what the data says. I mean, and this is historic, Nick. Yeah. Like, we're looking back like 2-3 years. This is historic. Yeah. And I'll just say, no, I think we can do better if we do this, this, and this. And you just have to realize that, like, faith has a whole lot to do with how your company grows and changes in the future. And sports sports would never be exciting if there wasn't an occasional upset. We wouldn't watch anymore. If you always knew who was going to win the game, you wouldn't watch anymore. And so part of what makes it so exciting is the fact that on any given day or any given year, the team that wasn't supposed to win wins. And you're like, wow, how did that happen? And I think business is, the ultimate combat sport. And so when you have a leader or a group of people, sometimes just shaking up your executive team, letting some people go, bringing some new blood in, mixing things up, reprioritizing. All of a sudden you can come out of a year where, we had I've been in this industry for 10 years, and last year was the first year that I went backwards. Like, painful year, went backwards. Not by a whole lot, but went backwards, right?
Yeah.
Graded on a curve, I think I did way better than a lot of my competitors. But dude, it was still a difficult year.
Yeah.
So you're going into 24 and you have some recency bias where you're just kind of like, oh man, that was hard, dude. And I'm not sure. But then you have to take a step back and say, you know what? I'm actually the guy in charge of this, dude. Like, I'm actually the one who dictates whether or not we will have a banner year. So let's pull the team together and let's be realistic, but let's be optimistic with our goals. And then say, if someone held a gun to your head and said, you have to do this, how are you going to do it? And it's amazing how creative you can get all of a sudden, even in a fictional way. You treat it like a life and death situation. If you had to do this, how would you do it? Man, okay. And then it's kind of funny. Well, we need $1 million. Well, you know what? If you have the right strategy, you can go get $1 million. You can go borrow it. You can go raise some equity, go do whatever you need to do. But bottom line is, you just got to have faith, like, in yourself and faith in your team. Remember when you were brand new and when you started it, and everyone, and like your family and friends were looking at you, they're like, I don't know, Brandon, are you really an entrepreneur? I mean, maybe you should go get a job. And it's like, I don't want to do that. Like I bet on me. Like, I bet on myself. And we're not perfect, so we get it wrong. Nobody bats 1,000, right? But at the end of the day, I really feel like those are the people that they bet on themselves. They have faith in the future. They're optimistic about the future. They still believe that despite all the problems America has, that it's still the best place in the world to go start a business and grow a business. Yeah. I think those are the people that end up just surprising people. And it's like, well, I did it because I believed I could. Yeah. That's why. If
you're listening to the podcast, I hope that's you. I hope you rest on those words and believe them from a man who's definitely lived them. It's been such an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Most action-packed podcast I think we've had, and I will personally listen to this one. It might make my annual list. Who knows? But
dude, I hope I make the annual list.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Shine Solar. Check out shinesolar.com. Or if you are in any of our states, a television near you, you might see some.
That's right.
Some
you may see it.
Nick recorded some awesome ads today, so we have a wonderful year planned ahead. And thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button so you can see all of our newest podcasts. Go to frankandmaven.com and subscribe to the Maven Monday email. There's lots of goodies in there for you. We may even link to some of Nick's ads this week.
There we go.
And you can kind of see what we're up to.
Little teaser.
And then share it with your friends. We are over 4,000 subscribers. I expect that to hit 5,000 maybe by the time this podcast is live. So it's getting steam, and we're so happy to have you. So we'll be back here every Monday answering your marketing and advertising questions, because marketers who can't teach you why
are liars in disguise. Did I get it right? Dang it.
We might need to change it because it's pretty good. Are just a fancy lie.
Are just a fancy lie. Let's try that again.
Marketers who can't teach you why
are just a fancy lie.
Have a great week.